Good morning, listeners of Good Morning BSS World Podcast. Welcome to the episode number 44. Today, I will present you a very interesting chat to Marcin Grzegory, who is a Deputy Director at Invest in Pomerania. In Good Morning BSS World Podcast, I am going to share with you from time to time the information about locations which are good, which are perfect for locating operation centers for example, such activities like BPO, SSC, GBS, IT or R&D activities. So here it is. Let's focus on Invest in Pomerania, the TriCity, Poland. Good morning, my listeners. This is Wiktor Doctor, and this is another episode of Good Morning BSS World Podcast. Today, we have a conversation with my special guest, who, as you can see on your screens, for those of you who are watching us on YouTube, is coming from Scandinavia because there is a Viking's shield behind his head. I am talking to Marcin Grzegory, Deputy Director of Invest in Pomerania. Hi, Marcin.
Hi, Wiktor. Pleasure.
Of course, you are not from Scandinavia, but quite close to Scandinavia region. You are connecting with me from Gdańsk.
Actually, I'm connecting with you from the borderline between Gdańsk and Gdynia, yes.
Okay, Gdańsk and Gdynia, but Gdańsk, Gdynia and Sopot are connected somehow together, and they are named in Poland as a TriCity.
Yes, they are. It's a very famous city agglomeration in Poland, and the brand is actually getting more and more famous with other countries and other continents for the last 10, 20 years as well.
And it has also some kind of a connection with the business support services sector, because a few years ago, one of the gurus of the outsourcing and shared services industry named Gdańsk and TriCity as the Krakow of the North, where Krakow is considered to be the European location for the business support services world. How it is about TriCity? Is it really so good place for the business support services industry?
Well, actually, it's a lot better now, because, as you said, this famous quote was from a couple of years back, and we do our best to keep growing and setting up benchmarks higher and higher. So I'm proud to say that every year is more and more demanding. Sometimes it's a bit crazy, it's a bit dodgy, because we do our best to think of new ways, new forms of being good different, from sort of creating our offer to best suit the needs of our customers of the BSS sector of Pomerania, of TriCity. So the big thing is we do our best. It's a huge honor to be in the same sentence with Krakow in business services terms, but we're also proud to say that we go sort of pound for pound with Krakow in many projects, and we have some success in winning processes and investors from Krakow. So it's a huge privilege for us to be mentioned in the same league, although we're a lot smaller still, but quality-wise, we have everything that's newest and state-of-the-art, and in many areas we're also the leader, whether it's Poland or Europe. We pride ourselves in sort of going head-to-head with the best, period, not only in Poland or in Europe.
Let's do some geography in here, because I can imagine that there are some people around the world who don't even know where Poland is, but we are rather targeting those who know where Poland is or where Europe is. But let's focus a little bit deeper in the area which is the Pomerania Voivodeship, Pomerania region in Poland. Can you just give us a snapshot, some kind of a view where Pomerania in Poland is located, and how this region of Poland within the last, let's say, 2 decades has developed from the perspective of growing business?
The one thing you have to know is that, first of all, we are on this end of the continent, we are the gateway to Europe. We are the northmost region of Poland, and the TriCity is the biggest container port hub in the Baltic Sea. We have a vast route, container route with the Far East. So the merchandise that gets shipped to TriCity will reach not only 40 million Polish citizens, but almost 150 million Europeans. That's why we're not only a local phenomenon. We're not the window of opportunity for Poland anymore. It's just plain and simple, the gateway to Europe from in the Baltic. This being said, we are the biggest agglomeration in Poland, north of Warsaw. Well, practically speaking, we're also the biggest European agglomeration north of Warsaw because with over 1.5 million citizens in the metro area, we're also bigger than Stockholm, Copenhagen, or Oslo. So the overall history behind us, we were always a very much port-centric economy. Everything that's good and that went with business always came from the sea or was shipped to the sea within the over 1,000 years tradition of the oldest of the cities of Gdańsk, and then it was sort of picked up. At some point in our history, we also became the summer capital of Poland because well, let's face it, it's the place to be in summer, right? You go to the coast, you go to enjoy the beach, and the situation was very much different in the beginning of the 90s, where the whole of the shipping industry, of the maritime industry in Poland was undergoing huge changes and shifts. And sort of some of that obviously persevered and started the new chapter in the maritime story of Pomerania. But sometime in the first decade, at the end of the first decade of the 21st century, there was something missing. And by we I mean the institutions responsible for the economic growth of the region. Came together and tried to find new ways of expansion, of development of the region. And there was a new term introduced at that point it wasn't called the business services sector. It was sort of in two different elements. It was obviously the IT and the so-called SSC BPO sector. Obviously that are now recognized as one major branch of the economy or area of the economy. So there was a huge study done with the help of external global advisories on the economical attractiveness of the region and the key areas of the industry, and sort of which one to pick to excel and to grow fastest and most effective. One of them was actually what we understand today as the business services. At that point, actually, just over 10 years ago, because we had our 10th anniversary 2 weeks ago, Invest in Pomerania was created. And Invest in Pomerania per se is not a company. It's an umbrella initiative that is the project management office for foreign direct investment for the beautiful region of Pomerania. We are actually, in our nature, this is outsourcing, because today we have 21 signatories, 21 institutions in the Invest in Pomerania initiative, and they all outsource their foreign direct investment credentials to the Invest in Pomerania team. So the business services sector is very close to our hearts, very close to our nature. And it was actually the first sector that we created impact in. But we were just created, as I said, 10 years ago. It started from 2 people, then it slowly grew to about 10, 11 in the first 5 years of our activity. And that was the area where we could make a difference with a different approach, with a unified effort, with doing proper research, with simplifying the customer support to a one-stop shop, for example, because before Invest in Pomerania was created, there was over 20 points of contact in different places, different institutions for a new coming potential investor. So just doing that, just simplifying, making it more efficient, more user friendly, helped us to achieve some sort of success and fuel the machine. Because as you know, it's in this fragile time where you create it, you have all the teething problems, all the growing pains you can imagine, and it's not that obvious. I mean, today it's obvious, but 8-9 years ago, it wasn't so obvious that this team and these particular people are meant to make a difference. So with every even small success, with every project that started considering TriCity for their new investment, they didn't even have to pick us, but they did. They did take the trouble to learn about our offer, which wasn't the case before. Because one thing we learned from the analysis, from the study that we done, is that we are skipped by most of the potential investors that are thinking of coming into Poland. In the beginning of the 21st century, we were just overlooked because of some shortcomings before, because of some inconsistencies in communication. And so on and so forth. A great example is the TriCity brand, because as I said, it's everybody in Poland knows what TriCity is, whereas it definitely wasn't a thing with advisory companies and with investors from different countries. Definitely. We always had the situation where the juniors or the project managers that did the study on a long list for their customer and our potential investor, they would, as you know very well, Wiktor, you sort of went through that over and over again. I mean, on the long list, there's sometimes 100 potential cities, locations, right, or even more. So you do that in huge volumes, and those guys will just Google you. They will Google you, and at that point, you had two cities where you had some bits and pieces of business services, because we've had major brands with us for over 20 years, but they weren't a sector. They just were companies that did something that sort of right now is considered business services, but they were sort of few and far between. So that they knew each other sometimes, but that wasn't a sector, so per se. And two of those cities, Gdańsk and Gdynia, they were Googled separately, and it was disappointing because they were considered small towns, or at least just maybe medium. Just Gdańsk is just somewhere above 500,000 citizens. So it's in global terms, it's just small. Gdynia is just somewhere around 300,000, even smaller. But if you count that together, which is actually the truth, right? Because TriCity is a fact. It's not a phenomenon. It's not a approximation. It's a city. I mean, if the big a big part was attributed to the fact that we got those investors to visit, and they found out by themselves that this is one organism, one living organism, the TriCity. And the major and leading Gdańsk, a very modern and very agile Gdynia, Sopot, which is small but it's the epicenter of leisure and fun, and it's trendy and it's very cool. So it's sort of it adds up to the overall flavor of the core TriCity. We call it the core TriCity. This is where the name came from, and it's sort of half of the citizens of the together metro area. Obviously, you're going to have the smaller satellite towns placed around the city that sort of joint tissue with the core and add up to over 1.5 million people outstretched along the coastline of the Baltic area. And this is one of our unique elements. What makes us unique and both fun and user friendly is that we don't have one CBD, as most of the typical locations and agglomerations have the major city and the satellites around that. Ours is outstretched between Gdańsk and Gdynia centers. So obviously we have a nice major dominating office hub somewhere in the geographical center of TriCity by nature, but we have four main business services hubs along the main line of TriCity. So what it means is Tri-citizens, we spend a lot less time in traffic than any other city in Poland or a city that size in Europe, for example. Connectivity, obviously, the emphasis is more and more towards pushing the cars out of the city and densifying public transportation. But you know that a significant number of employees will go to work by car, obviously, sort of making more efficient car sharing and so on and so forth. But still, whether it's going to the shop or going to the seaside to play volleyball, or driving your kids to their English lessons or fencing or sports, it saves you time. It's more likable. It's the place to live, and it's if you add the best in Poland quality of life along major cities and a leading job offer or job business offer, academia, we can go, as I said, pound for pound with every major city in Poland. And in this one particular area, which is sort of nutshelled by quality of life, we are incomparable because nobody has the C in our meaning of the word. So this is, of course, we are not responsible for that huge argument, but we do our best to use it the best way possible. And we're for many years, even myself, I kept repeating that there are multiple game-changing elements of the decision-making process that you can't really squeeze into an Excel sheet. It's very difficult to squeeze them in. But at some point in time, our quality of life stopped being the cherry on top, and it started to be a huge game-changing factor because this creates better influx of talented people. Because business services is all about being global, and this is what globalizing business is all about. Because you can follow the sun, you can have a 24/7 Overwatch, you can have a better, obviously a closest to perfect control over your business, and therefore you can also have people working for you from different parts of the world. And if you can provide your business as a professional, your service as a professional from more or less any point on the map, why not make it a nice spot? Why not making a sexy location? Why not make it a place where you be happy at the same time? And the work-life balance element, especially in Europe, plays a big factor. And I'm proud to say that TriCity right now is the only location in Poland that had a positive migration ratio for almost 30 years now. Because even in times where we did not have the business to sustain multiple graduates of our many universities, and they kept going abroad and to the capital, to Warsaw or to Kraków for business services. Even then, we were struggling. We were barely over the line because of the quality of life. Right now, we are getting this back. I mean, I have a lot of my friends that migrated to Warsaw when we finished studies because there was no work for them here. Right now, there is a lot of opportunities for them, even though they're seasoned veterans, CEOs, directors, and it's a matter of the last 7 to 10 years, roughly, because business services is global and you have global brands. You have the infrastructure to match these global brands because let's face it. I mean, whether you like it, this kind of architecture or not, but the tall office buildings, the skyscrapers, are the sign of prosperity. If you look at if you look on postcards from New York, what's going to dominate is the Manhattan skyline, right? Even if you don't, again, if you do not approve, this is the visual sign of prosperity. And our landscape changed tremendously. This is one of the reasons that sort of added up to the success, because around 10 years ago, we had 0 square meters of A-class office space. And then working together and mostly through local entrepreneurs and office developers, we grew to almost 1 million square meters of A-class. I mean, I think, and there's a good chance we're gonna match that milestone of 1 million square meters this year, 2021. So again, all that adds up together. I mean, hopefully this year we're just on the brink of releasing our annual report for business services, and this goes for every year. This goes for the end of the previous year, and we're going to be showing almost 32,000 people employed in business services, and the business keeps growing and employing new people. So we're well beyond that, probably at this point of the year.
Jesus, I was wondering when there will be a full stop. You will not allow me to ask even you more questions because you are saying everything what I wanted to ask you.
Sorry.
Oh, come on, Marcin. No, but
I did that before, so I had some of the same question marks that everybody has when thinking of TriCity. So I need to be prepared.
No, that's fine. That's okay. It was quite complex answer, but let's touch a little bit this business support services area now. We already have some background when it started. What is the potential? What is the headcount of the industry? Because this is just what you shared with us a moment ago. But if you could just describe how actually the picture of the business support services industry in the TriCity looks like. From where are your investors? How big they are, what kind of processes are the most popular in the operation centers which are located in TriCity. If you could touch that subject, okay?
Happy to. So starting geographically, no surprise, the biggest number of people is employed by US companies. Most of them global brands, huge players. Roughly 1/3 of the 30-something thousand people employed, every third person is employed by an American company. However, if you look at this from another standpoint, and you count the number of investments, the biggest number is an aggregated number of Nordic investments. Is just that there's a few more than the Americans. Obviously, on average they're a lot smaller. The market is a lot smaller, obviously. However, this proves a point. We are called the Nordic connection, Poland's Nordic connection. Our airport, the third biggest airport in Poland, is by far the best connected with the Nordics. We are the most proficient in Nordic languages, and if you put that together with the cultural vicinity, the many common areas historically, even from the historical standpoint, we are a favorite with the Nordic customers. Major countries of origin: UK and Ireland, Germany, Netherlands, but also Japan and India in the business services. So that's one of the comparisons. The other would be obviously the processes. We started as every other location with barely or just fundamental customer service, finance and accounting, financial services. However, today we're it's a different story, obviously, 10 or even more years later, because just over half of our community are IT professionals. Again, even a bit more than every second person employed in the BSS is IT. And within IT, we have a very big research and development community. We have multiple companies that are dealing with artificial intelligence, and we were cited and recognized as the second leading location for artificial intelligence in Poland. So we're working that, and we've created the AI hub in Pomerania. Obviously, we have evolved through the financial and accounting services, and we're now on a very high level. And we've become a very interesting fact. We've become a leading European hub for financial security because at some point in time, processes like know your customer or anti-money laundering became very in dire need for many companies, and our companies, both local companies, responded with an offer. And we had entries from investors that provided and expanded their processes in that area. It's over 3,000 professionals doing something related to financial security right now in TriCity. Obviously, due to our roots, a huge emphasis is on logistics, supply chain, and other processes connected also with the maritime. We are an obvious favorite for the maritime companies because of the obvious links. Because they have almost all of them or all of them have their core business here as well for Poland and this part of Europe. So it's a natural overbuild, strategic overbuild from core business, sort of adding the business services component, IT component, which is very natural. And what else? The fascinating thing, I would say, is that we also physically help to create a very huge, very huge is a big word, but very significant HR route. HR route, which is based mostly on centers dealing with recruitment process, outsourcing, and elements connected with just building HR processes for a defined company.
Okay, a short question about also the language skills, because I can imagine that if you are targeting Scandinavia, US, you mentioned Germany as well, this means, or that should mean, that actually there is a quite big potential of the language skills in the region. How about that area?
Well, that's obvious for many reasons, because this part of the world, Poland especially, our competitive edge comes from language proficiency. With the young generation, with the people that would be interesting for an employer as juniors, for example, English is not a foreign language anymore. Level of English differs, obviously, but the underlay is there. You just scale it up if you need to, and it's just business and professional language to be polished, and there you go. But the English communication is there. The second most popular, obviously, is German. Although we do not have a vast number of German companies, but the ones that are present in the region are both big centers and huge brands. However, I think around 40 centers speak German because let's face it, if you have business services operations in Poland, you would like to service your German clients from here because it gives you the best edge you can get. So this is again an obvious pick. French, Italian, Spanish, yes, very much so. But the Nordic languages, again, bear in mind that yes, it's a fact we're the most proficient in Poland in those languages, but altogether the number of Norwegian, Swedish, Finnish speakers is not vast. However, there's still hundreds of people that can speak those languages to the extent needed for our investors to be satisfied.
You mentioned 40 centers where there are German speakers. So how many at all you have the centers which you can qualify as the business support services centers?
I would say that at this point, we would be just over 170 centers. There's some that we would qualify to our database, to our radar. That would be not that obvious. We know about them. We know about a small operations of a couple of dozen people within a body of a greater organization that would be qualified as business services. But just would be overlooked by other sources. So it's sort of, on one hand, we have those great big players of a couple of thousand people employed, and on the other hand, we would have organization of 10 or more employees. This is our bottom benchmark, and they would be doing software. And would be also overlooked by other sources because there's so many, and it's difficult to count. I mean, it's our daily bread. We have to know what we work with. And for us, if we get those companies' employment aggregated, that's a couple of thousand people. And our best interest is to give our investor, our potential investor, best possible knowledge on the talent pool. So people you could be hiring. And for us, if for example, the software developer works for a company that has 15 employees or 150 or 1,500, if they do the same programming language and if they can be useful for an employer, that's the same. So altogether, there's many, although obviously, as I said, there's a big community of the small players, medium-sized players, and there's a heavy swingers, heavyweights. We would count the heavyweights, probably just a start just below 4 digits, and then there's a group of 1,000 or even a couple of thousand people employed as well. So it's getting more and more mature. The full diversity is there, full portfolio. We could say that at this point we're a mature location, not stable because still growing. But there's all sorts of shapes and sizes and levels. So whether you're looking for a job or looking for an investment, there's still plenty to go around.
Thanks for that. We just crossed half an hour of our talk. It just went. Whoa! I don't even know how fast it went. But I have 2 final questions.
Yeah.
One of them is business one, and the other one is private. Which one would you like the first?
Oh, you decide.
Okay, so let's start with the business. From the business perspective, you mentioned some kind of an obvious information, but what is an unobvious information? What may people not know about the TriCity region?
Well, about the region, about TriCity, about Invest in Pomerania, there's a lot actually, and that would need another half an hour. But I would name 2. Can I?
Yeah.
So number one
Try.
is we've established the so-called aviation hub. We are an acclaimed maritime location. But an inobvious thing is that there's a couple of thousand people, the best ever professionals working in aviation for the biggest global brands, and we've associated them, and we've had already one conference, and we're preparing for another one this year. So this is the inobvious fact about our business services sector, and the other inobvious fact about all the offer we prepared for the investors, whether it's helping with hiring or employer branding or all that. This is all free of charge for the investor, which is an obvious, and it's a huge game changer.
So you are a free of charge consultant?
Oh yeah.
Okay. Okay, of course you are paid by the government, or the local government.
Yes, our services for the investor are free of charge.
Okay, so now the private question. I am a big fan of reading the books, and I know that books are actually inspiring us to develop as people. What kind of book would you recommend, or which you read, which actually had a big impact on yourself?
Many had, but my latest two, I would say that would be Factfulness. And Factfulness is just helps you stay grounded in the hyper society and get a gasp of fresh air and think realistically about what's going on in the world. It's a very stabilizing book, definitely. And well, the books of the great Nassim Taleb, with Staying Anti-Fragile or The Black Swan, which corresponds so heavily to what's happening now and what about the disasters of 2020. Any one of them, or most definitely all of them, would be a great development for anybody reading them.
Okay, thank you very much. The last but not least, invest in Pomerania, as this is the subject which we discussed also within today's discussion. How to find you if somebody would be interested actually in moving their business or developing their business in your region? How fast is to get to you?
One phone call, one email. Information you can find on our website, whether it's Invest in Pomerania or our daughter project Live More Pomerania, which is more towards the quality of life and getting the best talent to the city, to the region. Obviously, LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram. But on Instagram, it's Live More, again, quality of life. Obviously, if you can find me or any one of my colleagues on LinkedIn, not all of us are on Facebook, but definitely, through the professional connections, just one message and we'll take care of the rest.
Thank you, Marcin. Thank you for today. I will make sure actually to put some links to the description of our today's talk to allow people to reach you in a nice and smooth way.
Much obliged.
It was a great chat. Thanks very much, and keep fingers crossed for the further growth of the BSS industry in the Pomerania region.
Thank you very much, Wiktor. Invest in Pomerania. We care more.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Good Morning BSS World podcast. It is worth to say at the end of today's talk that the TriCity, an agglomeration of Gdańsk, Sopot and Gdynia, is considered as one of the top investment locations for business support services industry in Poland. TriCity, located in the north of Poland in 2021, was a home for over 170 operation centers, providing various business process outsourcing, IT, R&D and shared services to organizations located all around the world. If you like today's episode, feel free to subscribe it, to recommend it to your friends, and talk to you soon in the next episode of Good Morning BSS World. Bye bye.